government-owned universities in the country, estimated to be around 150 under the aegis of the Academic Staff Union of University (ASUU), may be heading for strike. This is just as the federal government on Thursday, August 28, 2025, denied claims that it signed an agreement with the ASUU, describing the documents referenced by the union merely as draft proposals. From Monday, August 25th, various chapters of ASUU had called on the federal government to implement the renegotiation agreement entered into with the union to avoid industrial action, which will affect about 2 million students nationwide. The nationwide protest embarked upon by the union on Thursday, August 26, 2025, across all the campuses paralyzed academic activities, while members of the union expressed readiness to shut down institutions whenever a strike is declared by its leadership. Top among a wide range of issues causing rifts between the two parties, including non-signing of the 2009 renegotiation agreements, non-payment of 3.5 months withheld salaries, non-payment of promotion arrears, and non-release of revitalization funds to make the university's environment conducive. Some branches of the union are also protesting the non-remittance of third-party deductions, the renaming of the University of Maiduguri after late President Muhammadu Buhari, 150,000 naira monthly retirement benefits to the professors, which has been described as a national embarrassment, and the tertiary institution staff support loan scheme, among others. Meanwhile, the federal government has denied claims that it signed a binding agreement with the Academic Staff Union of Universities (ASUU), stating that the documents referenced by the union were merely draft proposals. The Minister of Education, Dr. Tunji Alausa, made the disclosure on Thursday during a press briefing in Abuja amid growing tension over ASUU's threats to embark on a nationwide strike. The documents ASUU has been referring to as agreements were just proposals that were never signed, Alausa alleged. The minister explained that the government had held an expanded meeting with stakeholders to review the contents of the draft agreements line by line. He said, and I quote, "A technical committee chaired by the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Education had been tasked with refining the proposals before forwarding them to the Yayale Ahmed-led renegotiation panel." Alausa emphasized that the Tinubu administration was committed to resolving the lingering issues in a sustainable and constitutionally backed manner. "We are not interested in bogus or unsustainable agreements. We want an accord that is implementable." President Bola Ahmed Tinubu had mandated the ministry to find a lasting solution that would keep Nigerian children in school. End of quote. He stressed that ASUU's recent protests would not degenerate into strike action as government had engaged the union continuously and meticulously. President Bola Tinubu has mandated us to solve this problem once and for all. It will be done truthfully, honestly, with full mutual respect to ASUU and other trade unions. We have to do this, not create an agreement that is not tenable, that is not sustainable, that the government does not have the funding to back. We will not work with ASUU to create a bogus agreement. We will create agreements that every component is actionable, feasible to implement, and sustainable. He added, the government side met today at the highest level. Myself, Minister of State for Education, Minister for Labor, and Productivity were all at the meeting. We had the Solicitor General of the Federation. As I told you, we are going to do this thing once and for all. Previous agreements that had been made with ASUU by the government, the Ministry of Justice was not involved. We want this to be done in a constitutional manner, that every single agreement that we reach with them will be within the context of our constitution. I will continue to tell the people that were at that meeting this morning, the Solicitor General and the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Justice, the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Education, the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Labor and Productivity, the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian University Commission, the Executive Secretary of the TED Fund, the Chairman of the Salary and Wages Commission, and the Director General of the Budget Office. The proposal that ASUU has given us, we went line by line to discuss, deliberate what the government can afford, what is within the constitutional purview of the federal government. We have reviewed all those proposals that he gave to us line by line. We have decided on a counter proposal to them. We are now close to setting up a high-level technical team to clean up our proposal and come with a clean document. And that technical team is being chaired by the Permanent Secretary of Education. The minister further emphasized that there was no agreement with ASUU, saying, but let me clear this point of correction out. The Solicitor General looked into the agreement. The government has never signed any agreements with ASUU. This was a draft agreement. The 2021 agreement was not executed by the government, so I need to be honest and truthful to Nigeria. ASUU might have an impression that they have an agreement with the government. There was no signed agreement with the government. But ASUU, they are good people, but we now have a responsive government that is being led by President Bola Tinubu, and you know that this president, once he makes his promises, he fulfills every single promise that is made, and he has mandated us to do the same. We will have a clean agreement that is actionable, where every content is actionable, implementable in a sustainable manner. But in a swift reaction to the developments last night, the leadership of ASUU berated the federal government for saying the 2009 agreement was a mere draft. The union said it wasn't surprised that the government said so because it lacks the act of keeping records and vital documents. The president of ASUU, Professor Chris Biwuna, in a telephone interview with newsmen, said the government could hardly produce any documents made available to it after 6 months. He said, and I quote, "In all our dealings with the government, there is one thing that stands out. It's their lack of keeping record. I want you to say it the way I'm saying it. In all our dealings with the federal government, one thing stands out. Their record keeping is very poor in all our dealings with them. There is hardly any record that you share with the government that in 6 months' time, if you come back, they will tell you they have that document. And so it's not surprising that the government is saying no agreement was signed." End of quote. Further speaking, the union leader wondered why the minister was not informed that the then Permanent Secretary of the Ministry, Mr. Mark John Nwabiala, signed on behalf of the government, while Professor Ukachukwu Awuzie signed on behalf of the union. He added that the 2009 document was what the government used to pay academic allowances for the universities in the past, arguing that the union had never made any agreements with the government appending its signature. The university then added, but let me just remind them, it was a document that was signed on our behalf by Professor Awuzie, the former ASUU president, in 2009. That document was what they used to start paying the academic allowances because it captures it. It is that document the universities used to pay external examiners, internal examiners, and all the defense of masters and PhD programs. It is that same document that allows us to elect our heads of departments. So it should be noted that heads of departments are not appointed by the VCs because there was that agreement. But because the government does not keep records and the government does not study the records they have, they could very easily think such thing exists. That is all we can say. But my suspicion, and I may be making an excuse for the minister here, my suspicion is that he was mixing the documents that we have with Munzali Jibrin, the documents we had with Mimi Briggs, and the current documents with that of Yaya Lay Ahmed as proposals. And he wouldn't be right if that is what he is referring to. If he is referring to the draft document agreement with Munzali Jibrin, the one with Mimi Briggs, and the current one with Yayale Ahmed, if those are the documents he is referring to as proposals and were never signed, then he could be correct. But if he's saying that there is no documents, no agreement that has ever been signed, then I think we have a problem. One Mr. Mark John Mwabiola signed then. He was a permanent secretary of the Federal Ministry of Education at the time. I'm telling you the one that I know. There were many other signatories to the agreement which Professor Ukachukwu Awuzie signed on behalf of our union. Professor Rukayat from Bayero University, Kano, BUK, was the Minister of Education then. I just don't want to join words with the minister to say he doesn't know what he's saying or something. When asked what the next line of action would be if the government fails to engage them as expected, the ASUU president said their branches would decide as it is the usual practice of the union. Nothing yet, we haven't decided, the professor said. He also clarified that they were yet to give deadline on when the nationwide strike would commence. No, we never gave deadline. We only said government was meeting on the 28th of August 2025 and that we would wait for the outcome of their meeting before we know what we would do as a union. That's all we said, he added. The union leader also explained that they did not shun Thursday's meeting, saying the meeting was primarily meant for only the government officials to deliberate among themselves. He, however, described the information released by the government representative that they would meet with ASUU leadership as lack of coordination. No, the meeting is not ours. It is part of the lack of coordination in the ministry. I believe because we are not supposed to be part of their meeting. It is their meeting. It's indirectly connected to us because it is about our demands, but we are not supposed to be at the meeting. It's their meeting. Students express concerns as lecturers threaten strike. University students have expressed concerns over a possible strike by the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU. The fear that if the union proceeds with the action, the academic calendar will be disrupted. Ofodili Chisom of the University of Jos said, if ASUU decides to go on strike, I think it's going to affect our academic calendar because we are already far behind due to previous strikes. Adding another strike is not something any institution will want. What ASUU is asking for is not something the federal government cannot do. It is well within their jurisdiction, so they should just give in to the demands. It's not too big or too much for them to handle. Another student, Pius Moses, said, the strike is really going to cause a lot of backwardness in my studies, and I would like the government to accept whatever ASUU is demanding. They should look into it because students' life and education are very important. The strike has already caused us several setbacks, and we wouldn't like that to happen again. Pam Derrick said, most of us are already preparing for our teaching practice. Many of us have even started applying to schools, and with this strike, it will disrupt not only the students, but the university as a whole. Please, the federal government should meet ASUU's demands so that we, students, can enjoy our stay in school. Most of us plan to graduate in 4 years, but with these strikes, we can't tell when we will finish. There is no gainsaying that the earnest desire of every stakeholder in the Nigerian university system, NUS, and indeed at large, is to conclude this renegotiation exercise within the shortest possible period, he said. The minister said the committee is to liaise and consult with relevant stakeholders to guide the position of the federal government on the issues in the draft proposed FGN or university-based unions renegotiated agreements. Other terms of reference is to renegotiate in realistic and workable terms the 2009 agreement with other university-based unions and recommend any other issue the committee deemed relevant to reposition the NUS for global competitiveness and submit proposed draft agreements within 3 months from the date of inauguration. The minister, however, noted that some of the issues had been resolved while they were working on others. The chairman of the committee, Professor Yayale Ahmed, said the whole issue since the 2009 agreement, the unconcluded NIMI BRICS agreement, and other issues that affected and constrained the performance of the university system were well known over the years. He added that the tax should be based on patriotism and sincerity of purpose. To ASUU, he said, I still recall my appeal to you in 1998. I said, can you please initiate and develop an alternative to strikes so that we do not lose the beauty of education, the beauty of educating our children, but at the same time, we always make our points very clear that the federal government or the state government will know that we are not joking. I am appealing to us and all the other unions that we are here to learn from you, and as messengers of the federal government, take your message and return with positive replies in a very short time. In his remarks, the then president of ASUU, Professor Emmanuel Osedeke, prayed that the new committee should not be like all the previous committees which failed to resolve the issues. From Lagos, this is Faith Nwaboko, News Express Nigerian Television.